So tell me about your thing.
So my thing for today is last week, Saddleback Bags released a new video that's about how to make a fake saddleback bag. You know, fake bags, counterfeit bags, huge problem for luxury brands. And I love the way that they approached this video because it's a how-to video targeted toward, supposedly toward counterfeiters. So I love the story. I love the way that Dave produced it. Dave is the CEO there. I loved the sort of relaxed attitude of it. And it's 12 minutes long, so it's kind of a mini film, not necessarily a video.
And it's good. It's a very creative idea to make the point of how counterfeiting has an impact on people who do business right. And then obviously, of course, he's very clearly making the point to his customers, here's my differentiation, here's what a quality bag will do. I'm sure he's lost a lot of business to counterfeiters, and I get that. But there's just a few things in there that, are made me uncomfortable. Just when he's making these kind of snide comments about counterfeiters. In a 12-minute video, one or two little comments like that can kind of just make me feel, it kind of left me a little feeling uneasy about it. One thing that he did also open it up to he's posted videos on his channel from his customers. And he's let them create videos. And he did this contest where you can, to show off his bag durability, kind of, where, he has a customer submit those pictures of them, a team of people just shooting a bag to pieces and then blowing it up. So, which I think voids the warranty. But anyway, interesting.
Yeah, well, he's made a commitment to video. He hired a filmmaker, actually, to produce video for Saddleback bags. A great example of, as a brand, I think, choosing a channel, or choosing
Yes.
what kind of content. I get that question all the time. I'm sure you do too, from companies who are saying, look, there's so many things we could be doing. There's videos, there's infographics, there's, cartoons, there's ebooks, there's webcasts, there's so many things, so many choices as a brand. And so I like the way that Saddleback is just, they've put a stake in the ground. They've pitched their tent in the video camp, and they're going with it. So I think there's a lesson there too: focus and being very clear on what your voice and your personality is.
That's right. Now that they do very well. I mean, it does. It looks like a film. It's shot really well. It looks like a documentary. I'm all for it. It's easy for people to get overwhelmed, particularly with video. But if you do say, all right, look, we are going to do, and video is the way to go. I mean, video is where people should be making their bet, just because YouTube is, it's the second largest search engine. And so people, even if they're just doing stuff, filming stuff with their phone, everybody needs to be focusing on video this year.
Right. That's interesting. And that's a good point that you had, actually, about opening it up to your customers as well.
Yeah, and they did. Did you see there was one video they had up there, this guy showing off a new bag that he uses for his cameras, and he's up on the top of Machu Picchu, but it was a foggy day and you couldn't see anything. So that's where he says he was. He may have been outside of JCPenney's for all we know, but that one I would have waited for the fog to clear a bit. But anyway, I don't mean to be critical. You just caught me at a bad time this morning. So sorry. Sorry, Dave.
So Ted goes corporate.
Yes.
There was a story last week about how Ted is allowed State Street Bank to produce a TED conference. So they called it like TED State Street. TED is known for quality content. They're known for big ideas, certainly. Their videos are well produced. And so as a brand, I think probably what State Street was trying to do was to align State Street with TED, so the content that they're producing, this event that they're producing, is a quality event. It's a quality piece of content. It's interesting to me that, how far can TED take their franchise? They've branched out from the original TED event to, all these TEDx events all over the world, and now they're going into the corporate market. So from a brand perspective, I think it's interesting as a model to think about, if you are a brand who wants to create that kind of that kind of alliance. If you want to be known for quality content, if you want to adopt some of that for your own brand, it's an interesting idea to tap into it. I'm not sure how much sense it makes for TED outside of the obvious, revenue play.
So they do have to grow the revenue, but just like with any brand, once you start, you got to be careful of diluting the brand. And they've done this very simple thing with just by simply saying TEDx, and they're very clear on the website, we're not affiliated, this is completely separate. It's kind of like what Chili's does with Chili's 2 at the airport. They know the customer experience is not going to be that great because it's going to be rushed. But so they say, oh, this is not really Chili's, it's Chili's 2. So if you're not happy, just lower your expectations, just bring it down a couple of notches.
I'm sure Ted would really appreciate that.
I'm sure they would. And the next time I see Ted, I will tell him, I'll apologize profusely. And then there was a piece in the Vanity Fair last October that was how to give a TED Talk, and it's beautiful. They just kind of break down this formula, connect emotionally, open up with a story, and the humble brag thing. But the nice thing is, I think it pushes everybody else. You can't just jump in and take that formula over. You have to really bring something very honest and authentic to make the model work now. And
I think that's really why it works. It's not. To me, it's not so much about the model as much as it is the content, right? Telling that true story really well. I think there is a formula that those TED Talks, have, but at the same time, it's a story formula that's, well established. Let's talk about my camera for a second.
Let's talk about your camera. You look wonderful.
I really like this camera.
Yes. So tell them about your camera.
I think that Steve Garfield is going to be really thrilled because I bought this Logitech camera at his recommendation. I had a little trouble knowing whether it was appropriate for a Mac. I'm on a Mac. I had a little trouble knowing whether it was appropriate for a Mac or not. So I'm in Best Buy and I'm, holding the box, and I say to the guy in the blue shirt, the Best Buy guy, I say to him, so is this, I have a Mac, is this appropriate for a MacBook or what? And he looks at the box and he reads it and he goes, doesn't seem to be. Grateful because I can't read, so
that is good.
That was helpful.
Great. There you go, and I think that's what's going to bring people back into the stores is that high touch expertise. That you can't read. You can't read that on Amazon Prime. You have to go in and rely on the experts. So
I didn't buy it at Best Buy. I went home. And I went to Steve Garfield's site and I Googled Logitech, and sure enough, he had a whole thing in there about does it work with Mac. So I clicked through Steve's affiliate link. I bought it from Amazon Prime just as a thank you to Steve, and as a giant thank you to him.
From Ad Freak, Tim Nudd wrote about this Norwegian advocacy group that created this brilliant ad, and the idea is that what the goal here is they're trying to change behavior and try to get more businesses, organizations to allow seeing eye dogs to come into the establishment, and just try to make it easier for their constituency. And so it's a very simple comedy formula. It's like, and everybody can apply this. People always think, well, how do I do comedy? I don't know how to make my product or business funny. Well, what these folks did is you take a formula, the agency, of if we did not have this solution in place, meaning a seeing eye dog, this is how bad things could be. And so they show these scenarios where people are using, a seeing eye moose and just all kinds of other things and what the consequences are. And then of course another comedy rule is you heighten that. You raise the stakes, you show how big and dangerous these consequences can be, and how they can impact. So you want to keep heightening things throughout. So they applied it. Now the formula is simple. The execution is really well done. The execution is not simple.
They take it. Was there a rhino?
No, I don't think they. Actually, they stopped at a lizard. So they really didn't. It was a hamster on a gerbil habit trail. I think the highest was the moose, I believe. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look. But I would have liked to see a shark. Maybe a land shark.
A land shark, yeah. Or I don't know. I still think a rhino would be a good one.
A rhino.
It's a rhino on a bus.
A rhino driving the bus. That I'd like to see. So, Anyway, it's a good. What I like best, it's hilarious. It's absolutely brilliant. But I think people can kind of look at that formula and kind of reverse engineer and say, all right, now let's look, what is our solution? And if this solution that we're offering didn't exist, how bad could it be? How bad would the world be? And then just kind of create some of those things. And of course, if you want it to be silly, and of course you want to make sure nobody gets hurt, right? And just run with it. And use a rhino. That's a good point, Anne.
And use a rhino. And that's actually kind of a classic storytelling mechanism, whether you're talking about humor or not, right? This is what is and this is what could be. So essentially, as they're looking at that what could be aspect with rhinos.
Exactly. That's right. And let's be clear, we're not saying anything derogatory about the rhino community. I want to be very clear about that. We don't want to get letters from rhinos again. Okay, that cost us 2 sponsors last year, and we're going to be mindful of that with the rhinos.
Well, I think that's a good point though about deconstructing the humor of that particular spot. We were talking about Ben and Jerry's briefly earlier today, and one of the things that I really liked about their famous Munchies tweet, when Colorado legalized marijuana, was that the punchline for that was essentially an image. And you talk about this all the time, thinking about your photo or using a visual as a punchline. So I think it's a great way to think about if you're not inherently funny, with your words, thinking about what can that video setup be? I mean, what can that visual setup be?
That visual, that was a brilliant photograph. It's simply brilliant because you look at that and you can see in your mind, these people storming the store and just completely clearing out. That's an amazing photograph because it invites your imagination. They run wild and it's just so well done.
Telling a super short story just in a tweet. I think it was great.
Well played, Ben and Jerry's.
Well played, Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, I'm getting kind of hungry now. Can we take a break?